Welcome back to Uncut and welcome back to another industry interview. Last year for Halloween, we did a special ranking the top 10 scariest movies based on science.
One of the movies on that list was a movie called Hell House LLC, which we thought was one of the scariest
For
movies
sure.
on that list for sure.
Hell House LLC was definitely nerve wracking, so we looked a little bit more into it and we had the great opportunity to interview Stephen Cognetti, the director for the movie.
In this interview, we were able to learn how Hell House LLC as an idea and then as the film itself came about. It was really great hearing all the details and especially hearing his own opinions on what makes a film scary.
And this is definitely great timing, not only because today is Halloween, the day you're seeing this video, but also because Steven, about a week ago, announced that he is now in production for the latest film for Hell House LLC.
Without further ado, here is Stephen Cognetti.
How did your career get started? What made you have that passion for horror and found footage in general? And who inspired you to become a filmmaker as well?
Um, yeah, so I wanted to be a filmmaker since I was as small as I can remember, a little kid. But and when I was growing up in like the 90s, late 80s, late 90s, when I really started watching, old enough to know what was going on in films, I was watching like the big filmmakers of that time were like, Spielberg, Cameron. I had to confess, I particularly fell in love with James Cameron early on when I saw The Abyss, T2, and obviously the original as well, and everything he's done. I was blown away by like filmmaking on that kind of scale, especially The Abyss. If you read about how The Abyss was made, it's insane. It's wild. So horror is a genre I've always loved. So for me, The Exorcist, I think is the pinnacle of, it's the best horror film, in my opinion. I think it still holds up today. But when I was gonna sit down to write my first feature film, I wanted to go in the horror direction. Just to give, I never tried to write horror until Hell House.
Hmm.
And so Hell House was my first try it, and then I found out that I liked it. I liked writing in horror, so I stayed with it. And it went the found footage way, because I think it served the plot better. What I was trying to tell, the fake documentary route, I think was when I wrote out the story, it just felt like that was a better way to go, anyways. And also for the second reason is that it also helped budget wise, because on these indie films, you just don't have a lot of money. When you're doing traditional coverage, traditional narrative films, it's very hard to make the dollar stretch on those narrative films. So found footage really is a good way to tell a 90-minute story cost effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why.
And then what exactly, where did the idea for Hell House LLC come from? That specific haunted house, everything goes wrong kind of
Yeah. Just thought it was a good concept to I forget like how it first came into my head, but the idea of like haunted house gone wrong was just like fun to me, just because you never know if something was going wrong, how would you know? So
Mm-hmm.
that was just a very interesting concept to me. So it took a while from that initial idea, like haunted, like something goes wrong in a haunted house, how would you know? To
Mm-hmm.
really fleshing out the entire story after that, the characters, the scares, and Hell House. Then how and um, but that's how writing goes all the time. It starts off with a seed, and then that seed's going to grow. It sounds corny, but it's like I think that's just so true when it comes to writing, that it is a seed. It just starts with like a tiny idea in your head, and you give it time, it will start fleshing out more. And I'm not talking about just even writing. You got to just give it time to develop in your head even before you sit down and start writing.
Mm-hmm.
And after a month of just like pondering the idea and just thinking like, where could this go? Is this an idea that can sustain 90 minutes, be interesting, have good scares in it. And eventually I got to that point where I fleshed out enough of this idea, the seed in my head, that I was able to start writing. And then once I started writing, it took a while to get to the script that I was happy with, to that we're going to shoot with. So that was probably about a 2 year process, because I was working a full-time job in New York City at the time. So I would get up in the morning, and I'd get up at 5 a.m. just to get an hour of writing in before I had to get ready to go to work. So I was very committed to it in that sense, and ever since I've been an early morning riser, just because once I spent 2 years getting up every morning that early just to write, to go before I got in the subway and go to work. I just never got up, and I love it now. But it was a long commitment. But yeah, it was a 2 year process to get to first draft to last draft to shoot with.
Wow.
No, I definitely congratulate you for that. That sounds like a lot of work and a lot of like passion putting into this
Mhm.
project, and I
Yeah,
mean it definitely paid off. It definitely paid off. And I think the Abaddon Hotel and the location that you have for Hell House is so beneficial and gives so much to the storytelling. Did you have this location prior to writing? Did you have it in mind, or did you go about securing it afterwards? And how did it
afterwards, yeah.
influence you? How did it
Yeah,
influence?
it was afterwards. It's and the same thing with the most recent one, like with the Carmichael Manor. It's I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the manor in mind, and nor did I have the hotel where I was going to shoot in mind for the original. That all came afterwards, and I know it was kind of like a gamble. Like if I know I was going to be shooting this completely independently, you write this location, then you're like, oh, I got to find that location now.
Yep.
So that's what happened. I finished writing the script, and two things happened at the same time. One, I put out a casting call, and two, I started furiously looking where I was going to shoot this. And so, but lucky enough, I reached out to a lot of like. First, I reached out to like actually like I was driving in and around like the outer areas of New York City, and that's why I kind of labeled it like it takes place in upstate New York. It's really Rockland County isn't really considered upstate, but it's like it's nice and rural looking enough that it felt very upstate. But um, so I found an abandoned house, and I was like. That was where I went to first, but I was like, you can't shoot in an actual abandoned house because it makes no sense. It's a huge liability. It's risky. It's there's no electricity. So
Horror
I
movie gone wrong.
Yeah.
yeah, so then I started looking for like, okay, what are like functioning places that look like they're abandoned? And that's when actual haunted attractions started popping up on my Google searches, and saying like, oh, that place looks abandoned, but it's fully in function. They use it every October for Halloween haunted houses. So that's when I reached out, and one of the haunts I found was the Waldorf Estate of Fear in Pennsylvania. And that's when I reached out to Angie, who owns it, and I met her. She gave me a tour of her place. She was completely on board with us shooting there, which is great. It's beneficial. When the person that owns the location you want to shoot in is completely on board, that helped a lot. And then she turned out just to be a great asset, anyways, just because she knows how to create a haunt. So that's something I have no experience with. So she was able to make it look believable, and the Abaddon just had everything we needed. It looked um, inside out, it looked exactly
Hmm.
like what we needed for the script. So I had to change very like a few things I did have to change to fit this location that I found. But you do that with everything. That's just like the Carmichael Manor. When I found the Carmichael Manor, I loved it. Said this place is a great place to shoot. I feel like this was built because someone 100 years ago knew that I was going to be making a horror film here, and it's like it's everything's come. It's for a purpose.
For sure.
But I I did have to twist a few things in the script, change a few things in the story to fit this location. Because in my head, it's just like this fictitious location you have in your head, but once you see the actual location you're shooting in, you have to change some things, and that happened at the Abaddon, and happened at the Carmichael as well.
You mentioned The Abyss, you mentioned The Exorcist, and you also mentioned how found footage is also convenient in terms of budgeting. But is there any specific film that inspired you to make this film, or inspire you to be the found footage route as well?
Yeah, the I would say the film that has the most influence on what I wanted to do in Hell House is a found footage kind of a found documentary movie called Lake Mungo. Have you
Hmm.
ever heard of it?
No, I
It's
haven't.
Australian. It's an Australian film. I think it came out in like I want to say like 2005, 6, 7, right around there. Um, and I remember watching that and being blown away and just thinking like, wow, if you make something, if you go in the fake documentary route, it's like found footage is one thing, but once you make something seem
Yep.
like a documentary, that's another level of realism that adds to a scare. I think why people love found footage is because it feels real, and that's why it makes it scarier because it just, the amateur feeling to it makes it feel like it's not polished, it's not studio, this could be real. But then once you go the documentary route, I think you even go down that hole even
Yeah.
farther. And I think it's fun for that. So Lake Mungo, what they did on that was, I think, was genius. It was so believable. You would think it's a real documentary, and it's so incredibly creepy. And so the reason why probably a film that had the most influence on why I went the route I did with Hell House was probably like Mungo. But then I've always just been like true crime documentary lover to begin with. So I love all those mystery shows that have, there are usually, they're about a murder.
Yeah.
And usually a husband murdered his wife. So that's usually 90% of those shows. But so I just changed it, instead of a murder, we're talking about something paranormal in this
Hmm.
case,
Mhm.
but kind of stick to that same kind of formula. Showing talking heads, news footage of the crime scenes and stuff like that. So yeah.
And as you mentioned, it being realistic feeling realistic really adds to the experience when you're watching it.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that many filmmakers go from experience. Do you have any personal experience with the paranormal that might have influenced the way you went about it, or is it just out of your imagination?
Yeah, it's pure imagination. I've never had anything
Okay.
paranormal in my history, but I just know what scares me,
Mm-hmm.
and I love thinking up of a good scare and of a clever way to create a scare. And I think if I have any strengths in writing, it's just that. It's just creating a good scare. And so I would think I don't know. I just know how to write what scares me and runs a chill down my spine. And then when I write it and then we eventually film it, I just like hope that translates to the audience as well. I hope, and that's the biggest gamble when I did Hell House. I'm like, I love all this subtle stuff. I just don't know if anybody else is going to find this scary, because I'm like, I do. I don't know if anyone else will. It was a relief when it came out, and people started reaching out to me saying how much they liked it. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, phew, all right, other people like this kind of scare too. All right.
On that kind of similar note, what do you think makes a horror film successful? Because I feel like with horror specifically, it's so easy to overdo it or underdo it.
Mhm.
But I think Hell House, all of the variations of it, really hit the nail in the head. And what, in your personal experience, do you think makes a horror film successful and is actually scary? Is it the music, the pacing?
I think that's different film to film, and it's different from filmmaker to filmmaker, and I think that's what's fun about the genre. There's so many different voices, people telling stories and scares in different ways, new original ways, or old ways, but a new take on an old way. And
Mm-hmm.
genres is so rich with so many good storytellers and filmmakers and writers and actors and everything creatively, makeup effects and everything is just I just love the genre and so many talented people in it. So I don't for me, I can only speak to what I like in my own
Mm-hmm.
films, but I know it's different for everybody, every filmmaker the same way. I think it's the pacing is certainly an issue though. Thing I think score adds a lot to it. I love a good score, and that can just add another layer, which is just some. I mean, sound design all together
Mm-hmm.
is probably my favorite part of post. I love creating sounds in a scene, and sometimes I get to do it myself, but sometimes I work with a professional sound designer, and which is more fun because they're better at it than I am. It all depends on where we are in budget, if I get to work with one of them or not. But when you get to work with a really good professional sound designer, and you have a scene, your scene would be here, and then once it's sound designed, it just goes up in here. It's just like adding that layer of atmosphere of, like a howling wind, rustling leaves, like the spooky
For
cemetery.
sure.
Adding that atmosphere, sound design is such a fun added element to horror that I think is great. But for me, it's got to be the scares have got to be. I just don't want to rely on jump scares. It's got to think for me. I know people love that, and that's fine. It's just a personal taste thing. But I like things that are very subtle and things that can be set up early on, payoff. So if you see something early on in the first act that just seems out of place but not scary, it might impact you later when we learn more about it in the second, third act. So it's setting up little things that will give you a chill later on as you pay it off. So, so I guess there's no one thing I would say that
Mm-hmm.
I think makes something scary, but it's just it's fun to play with all of the elements, whether that be sound design, how we shoot, the performances on screen, color, everything, and then fine tuning that, using the post process to fine tune that, to find the perfect balance of what is going to make this scare the most impactful. Sometimes it's not score. Sometimes it's not sound design. Sometimes you can overdo those things, and you got to find that balance. That's what post is, to really find what's the best way that, how is this scare going to be brought out the best? Is it
Mhm.
less is more? Or maybe if I add impactful score, maybe that brings it out the most. But how do we get it to a 10? I think it's going to be different film to film, scare to scare.
Yeah, I kind of want to say something on that because there was this one scare that really bothered me even now. Like it really like freaked me out. It was the sequence in which I forget the character's name, but he was alone in his room and there was someone in the room with him. And there was, I think it was the quiet that I think freaked me out the most is because you see this figure
Coming to the
and
door.
neither of them really know like should I say something? Should I do
Yeah.
something? And then especially when just before he's, taken in one way or another, how he just sort of looks back, like, is she still there? Like, oh, that I think
Yeah.
was so impactful for
I
me.
think that's a less is more situation right there, because I think once you start adding more elements to that scene, I think that's when it starts getting less effective.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think just going with what you have in camera is always best in that, because I think in that scene, particularly what you're talking about in Hell House 1, where Paul wakes up in the middle of the night and there's a little girl just sitting in the room with him.
Yeah.
Um, that is better. The more realistic it seems
Mm.
is the less post-production elements are added to it. So I think that's why it's effective, because it just feels real, and it feels real because we didn't really do much to it in post.
Mm-hmm.
Let that breathe on its own. Let the demon girl with her makeup effects and the lighting we had there play out as is, and didn't do anything to it. I think that makes, and that's something that you have to make those judgments in the post process. So you might look at another scare and say, this might be added. This might be better if we add something to it. If we add a sound effect of some kind, some little violin underscore of score. And so, but for that one, the judgment is that that's best the way it is. And I think it's more effective that way.
Definitely.
You mentioned being relieved by the reaction that people started telling you that they really like the movie and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I think Hill House at this point has reached a cult following of people that will watch all of the Hill House movies and any work that
Mhm.
you might do. Were you taken aback from the reaction that people had to the movie and the legacy that the movie has made? Especially, I mean, we got introduced to your work because it was ranked as one of the scariest movies of all time based on science. And so were you taken aback by this, and how has the reception changed ever since?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I think the for me, I was surprised. I don't even know if surprised is the right word. It's just I guess like flattered, humble is really like where it comes from me, because as a filmmaker, it's just so hard to find an audience. It's so hard to get a movie made, to get out there and get people to see it, because there's it's just a really tough business. It's a really tough industry. So when you do get something made and it does gain an audience, it's just it feels it's rewarding, but it's just like more like, oh, thank you for watching. It's like, because it's such a tough mountain to climb, filmmaking and gaining an audience. So shock isn't the right word. It's just like appreciative
Mm-hmm.
and grateful just for people just um clicking on a movie on Amazon or iTunes or something like that. It's a gamble. We're asking you for 90 minutes, 2 hours of your life to take a chance on our film. And it's just, I'm just happy that people gave us a chance, and then took the time to watch it. And then by word of mouth spreading it around, because, people didn't watch it because they saw an ad, a trailer for it on TV or something. They watched it because it was spread by word of mouth or completely organically. So that's another very something I'm thankful for, is that someone would watch it and then recommend it to a friend. Is just like, to me, it's just the nicest thing, and just means so much to me that people have been doing that.
And as you've mentioned throughout, there is not only Hell House 1, but then we have Hell House 2, Hell House
Yeah.
3, Lake of Fire, and
Mhm.
Hell House Origins, the
Mhm.
most recent one. And
Yeah.
did you have these stories already kind of like in the back of your head as we were making the first one, or did you just start developing them as you went?
Sort of. So there's a lot of elements that I cut out of the first few drafts of the original film. That when I was done with the original film, I knew there was a lot of story elements that were cut out just because the found footage format didn't allow for them. So
Mhm.
there was a lot of backstory to the cult, and so there was always story there. I just never fleshed it out into a script. yet, but I had these elements there. When I wrote the original, I didn't have anything in mind about like, Russell Wynn and Insomnia and Hell House 3, but I had a lot of the cult background and story and things. But when I knew I was going to make a sequel, then I started fleshing out 2 and 3 kind of together. And the Carmichael Manor came out of I thought I was done with Hell House movies after the third one. That's why I burned the hotel down. And because I really at the time wanted to be done with
Yeah.
them. But I gotta say, something called to me story wise. I just wanted to do a story about the origin of the clown and tell a story more about this clown because I love these clowns and I thought like we
Oh
could
yeah.
do more with them. And tell a story about where they came from. But without going back in time. So because I couldn't do a prequel, I couldn't do a full movie that lived in the cold times of the 80s. So I just wanted to tell a story in present day, but still kind of touch on some of the backstory of how we got to where we are today. But that obviously that story came out later. So that when the Carmichael, the fourth one, that came to me probably in like 2021 is when I started thinking about it.
Okay.
Which we shot in 23. So yeah. So yeah, that's the best I can do with that.
Yeah, for sure. And then what were some memorable challenges or memorable experiences that you had while shooting these four movies?
Um, any scene that like you're dealing with a lot of moving parts with extras is always tough. So the original movie had its big challenge when we did the tour
Yeah.
chaos scenes, and we needed to have ambulances and fire trucks and everything show up, which they did, which was great. But uh, I guess for being a first-time filmmaker on the original Hell House set, there's always you're learning as you're going. But not that I was learning. I did a lot of short films before, so I knew my way around a set. But it's just a bigger beast when you're doing your first feature. So there's just those and things go wrong on film sets all the time. It's that you have to plan for though. But the bigger the scene, the more complicated the scene. Anything with the scenes that have a lot of moving parts, they're all the toughest to shoot, mostly because we're always on these low budget films. We're so pressed with time, and we got to shoot these films in like 10, 11 days, and that's not a lot of time at all for a feature film. But found footage helps, but you're still under the gun, because every minute of every hour on a film set is money, and we don't have a lot of that. That's something we don't have a lot of is money. So you got to. So that I think that for me, always the biggest challenge is always time. Trying to get what I've written in shot and covered in 10, 11 days.
And then we're almost closing out. A lot of our listeners are actually aspiring filmmakers
Yeah.
that look forward to these interviews to see the people that they go watch movies for.
Mhm.
So what advice would you give to a filmmaker that wants to become a director, wants to get in the industry, specifically with horror, and
Mhm.
what is something that you would advise them to do?
Yeah, so getting into filmmaking is great, and I think today it's easier than ever just because you can film with your phone, and you can shoot ProRes on an iPhone in 4K. It's amazing, but and get really good shallow depth of field, like good looking cinematography. But when I say that, I don't go out and shoot a feature on your iPhone. But what I'm saying is. The best practice for filmmaking is making short films, no budget short films, and you just have to shoot, and you just have to know. The reason I always say shoot short films, it's the same way as like piloting an airplane. Like when we get on an airplane, we assume that this pilot has done 22,000 hours of like flight nav of
Yeah.
experience, and he's done all before he's taken his first group of passengers on his own up in the plane. So I say the same thing before you shoot your first feature, shoot a lot of stuff first to just get as comfortable as you can being a director at a small scale, small stakes like a short film. And then when you do graduate to making your first feature, the best thing for a director is to be wildly over prepared. It's just know every shot you want inside out before you get to set. Know everything that can go wrong before you get to set. Shot lists are so important just because even if you ignore the shot list when you get the set, it's okay. You just want very, very detailed shot lists because it's good to have a plan. Just because time is so tight that you don't want to leave anything up to improv on set. You want to know exactly what you need to get that day. If I have 6 camera angles I need of this scene, I want to know exactly what they are. So me and my DP are on the same page before we get there. We don't want to be figuring things out while we're there. We want to know exactly what we got to shoot while we're there. Because you can't waste a minute on a film set at all. So being prepared that way, and then if you know that you have 6 camera angles you need, but you only have time for, let's say, 3, what 3 are the most important? What 3 are the ones that I definitely need to be able to cut this scene together later on? So you need a plan, you need a backup plan. So you need to know everything that can go wrong and say, if I can't get it, I don't have time to get the coverage, how I do it. So and the best thing a director needs is just complete confidence in knowing exactly what they want to see on camera. So if you don't know, if there's any hesitation, if you're uncertain or unsure, that's bad. And that's a lack of confidence that will trickle down into the crew, and everyone will kind of know, and that will start weakening the project. So you have to know exactly what you want to see inside out in every single way, so that you can communicate it to every department head, to your cast. If you don't know, that's a problem. So don't go into if you walk onto a film set and you don't know exactly what you want to see that day out of everybody and everything, every camera angle, every single frame of film, then don't get onto that set until you do.
That's really
That's
big.
really good advice.
I mean, we've been in a lot of sets for short horts and
Sure.
horror shorts. And I mean, yeah, stuff goes wrong all the time. And yeah, we were always told that you can never be prepared enough.
Yeah.
There's always something that you can do.
That's the thing. You always get thrown curveballs, and you think you're over prepared, then something you just never anticipated happens, and you're like, all my plans just went out the window, and I got to figure something else out. Yeah, it happens all the time, and that's why filmmaking is just so stressful and tough.
For sure. Steven, what is next for you? What is cooking? What is brewing behind the scenes?
I don't know yet, just because I have 2 different scripts that I'm working on getting off the ground and getting made, and I just don't know which one will be next. But one of those 2 is the next Hell House. So, and it's not found footage. It's just a traditional narrative. I think that's the only way to keep Hell House fresh, is to tell it a different way, and that is to leave found footage behind. And I don't know if I'm shooting that next, because I have another script that I'm just in love with. It's scary as hell, and I can't wait to shoot it. So it's one of those 2 is going to be my next project. I just don't know which.
That's amazing. So if people want to keep on the lookout for those projects, where can people follow you and keep in contact? Yeah,
I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Those are my jams. That's where I kick it the most. And just, my name on Instagram and Twitter, you'll find me. I love it. I'm the weirdo, like, hey, avatar. So you'll definitely be able to find me easily that way. But not so much Facebook. I don't have a TikTok either. So yeah, Twitter and Instagram is where you can find me.
Awesome. So with our audience, when we finish an episode, we always go and cut and clap our hands. So in the interviews, we're having our guests do the honors for us. So if you can just bid us farewell and then build it up and cut, and then just do that for us, that would be great.
And cut and then clap.
Correct.
Opposite. Okay. You can tell how good I'm going to be at this. Whenever I have questions about something that sounds so basic. Thanks for having me. It was great to be here, and cut.
Thank you so much for watching this episode.
You can follow us on all social media as &cut the podcast, and additionally, you can find us on YouTube and TikTok as That Film Couple for vlogs and extra content. You can also follow me on Instagram as sebi.mp4 and on Twitch as sebasparra1k.
And you can follow me at caitlin.mp4 on Instagram as well.
My name is Sebastian.
And my name is Caitlin.
And this is
&cut.